Right, a favourite scenes list. Every Wheel of Time YouTuber needs a favourite scenes list. It's basically a rite of passage. I feel like compiling a list of your favourite moments is something every Wheel of Time fan thinks about after finishing the series, if for nothing else other than to cope with the massive hole left in your life that used to be filled by these 14 books and characters that feel more like friends at this point, that you're only now beginning to realise that you'll never hear say an original sentence ever again. And, oh, thank f***, I forgot about New Spring. Anyway, while compiling my initial list and thinking about what made a scene stand out to me, I realised this wasn't going to be one video, but 3. That's right, this is just part 1 of a trilogy I'm coining the f***ing 15. The series will be split into the top 5 f*** yeah moments, the top 5 f*** off moments, and the top 5 holy f*** moments in the Wheel of Time. I'm probably going to need some more PG titles for these. Boiled down, it's basically the most exciting, most emotional, and most shocking moments in the Wheel of Time. And this video is going to be the most exciting. These are the moments that caused me to punch a fist in the air and shout, "Fuck yeah," at the top of my lungs. You try convincing my housemate over breakfast that I was just reading at 2 AM that night. Anyway, quickly moving on to number 5, and this is a pick I don't see on many lists, and this scene is Galad's trial beneath the light duel against Aemon Volder. I should also mention spoilers, because, well, duh. Galad is one of my favourite characters. He perfectly fits the handsome knight archetype, as good looking as he is good with a sword, with a very black and white view of right and wrong. And because of this, he provides a great point of contrast for our other protagonists, as well as highlighting how such a binary view of good and evil isn't really applicable to the more complicated, muddled moral universe we live in. Nonetheless, Galad is determined to live and die by his own code, and nowhere is that more evident than in this scene, as he does not go into the duel expecting to win. The build-up to the fight is fantastic, establishing Galad's determination to avenge his stepmother even at the cost of his own life. I know Morghedien isn't really dead at this point in the series, but he doesn't know that, so I'm still rooting for him. Not to mention there's also the situation with the Seanchan and the lack of justice for Pedronar's assassination. Basically, there's a lot more riding on the outcome of this confrontation than just justice for Morghedien. A particular highlight of the scene is when Aemon Volder makes his speech about honouring old traditions, unknowingly cornering himself into the duel. The fight itself is exhilarating, with sword forms flying all over the place. Rhino in a tutu meets manscaping with a strimmer, the latter being a very precise and delicate form. Establishing Aemon Volder's skill as a blades master adds a real sense of tension to the duel, and makes it all the more satisfying when Galad bests the Lord Captain Commander using his wits, feigning tiredness and tricking an overconfident Volder into repeating his attack until delivering the deadly counter. This scene makes the list because it holds a special place in my heart. We all know what I'm talking about when I refer to the slog in the middle of the series. When I first finished Eye of the World, I was hooked and immediately began devouring the subsequent books one after another without any pause. But after Crossroads of Twilight, I didn't feel that immediate need to pick up the next book. It was a while before I started Knife of Dreams, and this scene was the perfect action-packed opening I was looking for, and made me fall in love with the series all over again. It really does feel like a return to form, with the series and White Cloak's attention now firmly moving towards Tarmangeddon. Safe to say there were no more big breaks between the end of this chapter and the epilogue of A Memory of Light. Number 4 on the list is of course the infamous igloo scene. Any excuse to reread this chapter. Probably the hottest scene to take place in a literal dome of ice. Look, we all know that feeling when one of your best mates finally gets with the person they've been crushing on for ages, and I was shipping Rand and Avienda since Roydian. I think one of the greatest strengths of the Wheel of Time is that, as well as being this hugely detailed, uniquely magical fantasy epic, it also never fails to deliver on the coming-of-age story of its main characters. The majority of the Emmonsfield gang is between 18 and 20 when the series starts. I don't know about you guys, but that was prime coming-of-age time for me. Who am I kidding? I'm still coming of age. It really contributed towards my attachment to the characters, and at the end of the day, characters are the gateway into fantasy. I'm never going to wake up fearful that today might be the day I manifest magical powers that will eventually drive me mad. I have far bigger worries in life, like climate change and neoliberalism. But what I can relate to is being awkward AF around people I fancied and believing that all my mates must have attended some secret class on how to talk to girls. This is why I love the igloo scene. It's a little piece of high school love triangle drama in the middle of this grand, fantastical story. I love how the start of this chapter is just as action-packed, but in a very different kind of way, with Rand chasing Aviendha through a gateway into a snowstorm that she is definitely not dressed for, and rescuing her from falling into a frozen lake. The aftermath is also hilarious, with the ever-honourable Rand proposing marriage, and Aviendha playing it as cool as the water she nearly drowned in. I think it speaks a lot to the credit of this scene that I found it one of the more relatable depictions of losing one's virginity, and this coming from a scene that includes teleportation and accidental ice water skinny dipping. There's also some great world building elements thrown in there, like the gateways and visiting Seanchan for the first time. What is there not to love about this scene? Now number 3, and this is Nynaeve versus Moghedien, part 1 of like a whole bunch. I'll spare you my PowerPoint presentation on why Nynaeve is the best character in the Wheel of Time, but to summarise slides 4 to 17 in 3 words, braid tugging badass. And nowhere is this more evident than in her first magical duel against Moghedien in the Panarch's Palace in Tanchico. Despite the Forsaken having a fearsome rep, our OG wisdom doesn't hesitate to start throwing weaves at Moghedien after recognising her from their earlier compulsion-heavy encounter. The highlight of this scene has to be when Nynaeve realises she's matching Moghedien in using the one power. It's a major fuck yeah moment and turning point for the series, as facing off Forsaken at this point, unless you're Rand, kind of felt like a bit of a death sentence. Just like in Galad's duel, there is something so satisfying about a character coming up with a clever way to win the day. And when Nynaeve realises that Moghedien is trying to distract her, she in turn surprises the Forsaken with a Quendela collar to the face. So badass. On a side note, when rereading this chapter, I found it interesting how Robert Jordan described the fight from an onlooker's perspective as 2 sweaty women staring intently at each other. With the TV show coming up, I'm interested to see how they portray channeling to make it seem a little bit more dynamic than that description. Number 2 is another badass moment from one of our OG Emmonsfield females, and that is when Egwene stands up to Elaida in the tower. Egwene's whole storyline in the tower is one of my favourites in the entire series, and though some people might consider the crescendo of this plotline to be the Seanchan invasion, to me the real confrontation was always between Egwene and Elaida. The whole chapter, in my opinion, is a masterpiece of writing, paced like a roller coaster of successes and setbacks for Egwene. First, she has a great talk with some of the high-ranking White Sisters in the tower, before them being told that her lessons and therefore opportunities to interact with Aes Sedai are cancelled, and instead she will spend her days doing hard labour. Then she's offered a chance to escape the tower by the Master of Kitchens, only to turn it down because she realises the best place to help the tower is from within the tower itself. With so many ups and downs, this ride was already exciting, even before we get to the dinner. On a side note, I think it's incredibly important that Egwene be offered her freedom beforehand, as the risk she takes in the next scene wouldn't seem half as sacrificial if we believed she was forced into it by being a prisoner. And now we have the long-awaited dinner scene, with Elaida hosting some of the most influential Aes Sedai and forcing Egwene to be her cupbearer. Now, we've seen this somewhere before, haven't we?
Tell me my one. Good.
A few moments later.
Note to any maniacal rulers out there, don't make your arch nemesis pour your drinks. It never ends well. Now, as much as Elaida comes across as cartoonishly stupid in this confrontation, that shouldn't take away from how cleverly Egwene uses her last opportunity in front of the Ujers to make a point. She uses some solid logic for the Whites, compares the broken tower to a wound in need of healing for the Yellows, and even throws in an obscure quote for the Brown Sisters. Elaida losing it and attacking Egwene was predictable, but when the true Armelin wills herself to stand serenely whilst bleeding and being beaten, Well, let's just say it was so awesome that I'm prepared to forgive Egwene for all the Garwin dream romance bullshit to read. And that's saying something. And lastly, we come to number 1. There was a clue in that sentence, by the way. Dumai's Wells is quite literally, mind-blowingly, earth-shatteringly epic. It makes Helm's Deep look like the second best halfway point in a fantasy series. That's right, I said it. But Dumai's Wells is not my number 1 yeah moment on this list. No, instead my number 1 scene takes place slightly before the actual battle, when Perrin is preparing to rescue the Dragon Reborn and reaches out to the wolves for help and tells them that Rand has been taken prisoner. No sooner has Perrin thought the phrase "they've captured Shadowkiller" than the entire countryside for miles erupts with the howling of wolves. Just imagine how chilling that scene would come across in the TV show. Horses whinnying, men preparing themselves for an attack, and then, just as the howls die down, in Perrin's head we hear 2 words. We come. Those 2 words never fail to give me goosebumps. When 1,000 wolves appear out of nowhere and attack the Shido during the actual battle, don't get me wrong, that was a yeah moment too, but nothing will ever compare to the way I felt the first time I read those 2 words. We come. So that's the first part of my list. Thank you guys so much for watching. I would love to read your thoughts down in the comments below and let me know, what are your top 5 yeah moments from the Wheel of Time? Is there any overlap, any scenes I missed out, or any guesses for the 5 scenes I'm going to talk about in the next part of this trilogy, the top 5 off moments in the Wheel of Time. These are the scenes that have me putting down the book and stomping around my room having imaginary arguments with characters. Yes, my housemate does think I'm a weirdo. As always, please like, share and subscribe. It's been great to see so many of you sign up to this channel already. I really appreciate it, and nothing motivates me more to start work on that next script. So watch this space for more content like this. Thanks again, guys, and I'll see you all next time.